Imagine just having a brand where just people just fucking buy, right? And you look at these brands like Louis Vuitton, Balenciaga, some brands I'm gonna mention today. It's like they're not where they are because their ads are so good or their content is so good. It's the branding, okay? And there's two things that is required to build and scale a clothing brand in 2026: product and acquisition. And I always say the product is the value we're specifically providing to your market and your customers. And number two is the acquisition, which is how do we get our value seen, okay? And if you have been following me for quite a long time, lots of stuff I've been talking about is acquisition, but lots of the time as well, we've also shifted our attention to also focus on the product aspect, because lots of the people think a good brand is just having a good a good product and a good logo, and that's it, right? And if you look at the brands like Supreme, Babe, Thug Club, Needles, Gymshark, Louis Vuitton, these are all brands that I guess very respected in their retrospective industries, okay? And all these brands have one thing in common, okay? They are all top well-known brands in their established niche, okay? Now, the question really comes down to how do we actually build a brand like this, okay? Because it doesn't really come down to clothes, it doesn't really come down to the quality or the type of content you shoot and stuff like that, okay? It's a combination of a lot of things, which I'm gonna go over in this video today, okay? Now, the reason why you should listen to me, I mean, if you don't know, I work with some pretty fucking cool clothing brands. Here are some of the brands, some of our clients, Flower LA, where we actually help make the specific craves as well. So like this type of stuff, right? We have our client, Pluto Golf, right? If you look at our clients' brands, right, it's pretty fucking sick. It's not just a flat lay and you call it a day and you scale to 10K. Like, these are some pretty fucking sick brands if you just look at the content. But you look at these content like, wow, that's a pretty good brand. And you're probably thinking, I can do that as well, right? And you go and shoot content, it doesn't turn out like that because you don't understand how to actually make a brand, right? Like our client Society Cycling, right? If you look at their brand, right? Again, they don't have a lot of followers, right? But we scaled to $65,000 a month, right? If you look at their branding, cool. We have a client Saint P, right, as well, right? Some pretty cool fucking branding of clothing brands. They're not just these average fucking tactile brands and shitty brands like that, okay? So there's a lot to it, okay? Now the question is like, how do we actually sort of build a brand like this retrospectively? And the reason why I want to make this video before I do go and give the source out is because I see so many brands that are not my clients, of course, but so many brands that get into this game and don't know how to build a brand. Right? It's fucking hilarious, right? If you look at the brand, it's like just by looking at it, without even looking at the acquisition or the back end stuff, you can kind of see why they're not making any fucking money. Because their branding looks fucking shit, okay? And there's three things that I like to specifically focus on when I look at a good brand, like obviously the ones I mentioned specifically, like Supreme, Babe, like they all follow these three things, which I'm gonna go over in this video today, okay? So, let's start with number one, okay? Which is, number one is hyper-specific ICP, which is what I like to call an ideal customer profile, right? And there's two things that I like to specifically focus on when I look at a good fucking brand, and they do this very well, okay? Number one is to focus our angles towards one type of avatar, okay? And the saying goes, it's like we want to provide one very specific value as a brand to one very specific type of customer, okay? Because the saying goes, especially do this if you're a small brand that sort of, I guess, is just starting up, is if we sell to everybody, we sell to nobody, okay? And if you look at all these big brands, right, they all serve one customer, right? One type of customer. But that doesn't mean, right? That doesn't mean they only sell to that customer, right? If you look at Nike, obviously everybody's in Nike. It is a brand for people that do sports, athleisure wear, whatever it is, right? In the sporting world. People that don't even play sport wear Nike, but all of their angles, marketing, right? Every single marketing campaign, every single creatives, every single post ads that they run are directed towards one type of individual, and even their slogan, just do it, okay? And the reason why I do this is because, like, logically speaking, if you talk to one type of individual straightforward, even like in a meeting, right? If you have a one-on-one conference, they're most likely they're most likely to listen to you, right? Because you're speaking directly to them. However, if you're speaking in like a Google Meet or a Zoom conference with 100 different type of people, right? It's less likely that every single one would directly listen to you, right? That's just psychology, right? So that has to be directly reflected towards a marketing angle, right? So focusing our angles towards one type of avatar is going to be a game changer, because once we actually focus on one type of avatar, every single thing within, I guess, let me write this down, our marketing, right? Our content, our ads, our email, our SMS, our website can be speaking to those one individual customer. And if we can directly sort of emotionally charge them and speak directly to them, they're going to resonate with us more, which is a very powerful thing, okay? Now, the second thing that I need you to do is sort of reverse engineer your ICP to figure out your brand angles. And your brand angles, all it is a type of direction your brand needs to take to resonate with your customers. For example, right, if I had a gym brand about working out, right, let's just say I had a very broad ICP, I'm shit at making brands, so I'm targeting people, I have a gym brand, I'm targeting people who go to the gym, right? What are the angles that I can make that can resonate with my customers more? So there are different types of angles in the gym niche, right? For example, number one is discipline niche, right? The discipline angle, right? Where you want to focus on people that are very disciplined going to the gym and they make it their whole lives. And obviously there's nothing wrong with that, but that's an angle. Number two is a more of a community angle, right? Finding people that sort of go to the gym to build a bigger community, to make connections, friends, enjoy, right? Third is just a lifestyle angle, right? You see lifestyle angle where they eat healthy, gym's just part of the life. So you see how there's so many different angles, and your goal right now to make a good fucking brand is obviously number one, to individualize your ICP. Go very, very, very specific to the type of customer you're specifically selling to, because once you understand that and once you dial that in, you can create your marketing, your content, ads, email, SMS, your website, right? So direct that you're almost directly speaking to them individually, right? And the second thing that you need to do is you need to reverse engineer your ICP from what they do, how they live, their daily pain points, and work out the different types of angles that you can apply to these type of stuff, right? To make sure they resonate with your brand, okay? And that's what I want you to specifically target, one type of specific ICP, because once you get very good at this and once you find your ICP, right, what your whole brand is about, and you can reverse engineer it to different types of angles that your people can actually resonate with, right, you're gonna create a community, right? A community of like-minded people. And that's what you need to scale a brand, right? You don't need random motherfuckers buying shit from your brand and you think, oh, how do I get more random people to buy, right? How do I get, if I have a gym brand, it's not about how do I get gym people to buy my product? No, that's the wrong mindset. It's about, number one, what type of customer do I actually want, right, to buying from my brand, right? And the reason why I want you to think about that, because again, our goal isn't to sell to everybody. Our goal is to be so fucking good at what we do that we can provide a perfect solution to one specific type of customer in our clothing market. For example, gym. If I'm targeting people who are more serious, right, and that's our specific angle that we go in, then our marketing, content, ads, email, SMS, website, everything in terms of actual acquisition, right, is going to be towards more, I guess, functionality, right, about more discipline stuff. You see how the whole narrative of the brand changes just because that's the type of angle we want to go to, and that's such an important thing that what most people forget, okay? Number two, okay, is what I like to call, and this is very important, okay, it's what I like to call controlling the packaging of your brand, which ties deeply into how your brand is perceived by the consumer and your market, okay? And let me give you an analogy, okay? What do you think the reason people buy $10,000 Louis Vuitton bags? Okay? They don't buy a $10,000 Louis Vuitton bag just because the design or the specific quality is worth $10,000, right? They don't buy it because it's functional. No. They buy the $10,000 bag because they see the value in it. But the question is, what is the value? You have to realize your clothes is just a physical token of what your customers value that they're getting, right? It's just a physical token of it, right? For example, people pay $10,000 to buy the bag. Obviously, there's a physical aspect, but more towards it, there's the emotional value towards it, right? The status, right? The emotional skew, all of that. That is why it's worth $10,000 because the brand provides that value, right? So I need you to stop thinking when you are trying to increase the perceived value of your brand about product. Like, people don't give a fuck, right? It's like, I can guarantee you, if you're on the streetwear niche and your angle is keep going and you're targeting the same people as Supreme, right? Where streetwear kids, New York, all this type of type of ICP, right? And you keep going by quality, right? And you might have better quality than Supreme, but I can guarantee you, the people that you're targeting is the wrong type of people, and they won't buy from you because they don't give a fuck about quality. Right? They care about status and who your brand is associated with. So you see how powerful this is, right? Because we need to get very clear on who your type of customer is and making sure that angle and your narrative fits to what your customer actually wants. Because again, if I go on about Louis Vuitton and I'm targeting the same people as Louis Vuitton, right? I'm talking about, oh, my bag is waterproof, that's what they don't care. They only care about the brands or the status that they get that's associated with the product. They don't care about that, right? So number one, we need to get hyper specific with our ICP, right? Number two, we need to find a way we can package this, okay? And your brand, I'm gonna give you another analogy. Your brand is almost like when you go on a date, okay, with a boy or a girl, whoever you want to, go on a date with, okay? When you go on a first date, you are most likely wanting to smell the best, look the best, wear your best watch, wear your best clothes. Because why? Because your first impression matters, right? Your first impression is very important, right? Because after your first impression, what happens? That will dictate if you rather have a second date with him or her, right? And onwards to a future relationship. And that's the same way I need to position your brand, right? When a customer or a consumer, anyone enters your brand ecosystem and they find your touch point through an ad, through organic, through your website, through Google, through AI, or whatever it is, your first touch point needs to be absolutely fucking incredible, because that will dictate if your customer will be a lifetime customer or number two, will never see your brand again, okay? Now the question is, right, how do we actually, obviously you talk about our first date analogies, right? How do we actually make our customers come back, and how do we make our impression so fucking good, right? Within 3 seconds, your customers need to understand what the fuck we do as a brand. Okay, what do we do, right? If I'm a cycling brand that targets specifically for professional cyclists, within 3 seconds in any single touch point, they need to understand that, right? If I have a golf brand and I'm about targeting people who are less serious about golf, my content, my bio, my angles of copy, my website, everything needs to showcase that, right? And again, I'm telling you this and not saying you need to write a whole fucking paragraph in your bio or your websites to showcase that. No, it's the impression, the quality of the creators and type of stuff that determines that, right? Second thing is trust, right? Within 3 seconds, you need to demonstrate the ability to actually dictate trust within your customers within 3 seconds. How do we do that? Is the quality of your content. Okay, that's the easiest way, right? The second thing is who your brand is associated with, right? That can be through UGC, right? If I have a golf brand and I'm associated with fucking Tiger Woods, obviously that's gonna increase my perceived value of the brand. But it's not only about UGC as well, it's also the type of models you represent, right? For example, if I am selling clothes to Asians, right? And I want Asians to buy my clothes, and every single touch point within my creators through organic ads and our website, right, should be Asian people wearing my clothes so they can feel related, right? You see those little things matter, right? And that's what I want you to focus about, that building your brand in terms of first date analogies, okay? And so the third touch point I want to go over is every association within your brand matters, right? Touch points in relation to your brand, right? Think about your SMS, your email, how your copy is being presented, right? Do your website copy, right? Your language, your tonality, the type of creatives that you release, everything matters, right? And the fourth thing technically is the people who represent you also matter to increase the perceived value. The same analogy that I give you about Tiger Woods, right? If I have a golf brand and I have fucking, let's just say basketball. If I have a basketball brand and I have like LeBron James wearing my product, obviously the perceived value goes up. So it's very important. There's two ways in terms of when I mention people who represent you, there's two ways to do it. Number one is the UGC aspect, right? So someone that is a brand ambassador, whoever it is, make sure their I guess, how do I say, the perception in their market is also good as well. Because if their perception is bad, then that also taints your brand as well. It's a direct correlation between them, right? Obviously, the models that you use on your content as well should be a direct relation, right? Again, it's so simple, but so many people don't do this right. And this is why brands pay millions for fucking models, right? Because they want to exactly who their ICP is, okay? So models and UGC, right? And the last one is actually how your product is packaged. And it's not really about, I guess, how your product comes when your customer gets it, right? That might take a little bit, that is important as well. I always talk about this with my clients. I always get them to handwrite letters, notes, and shit like that. But when I talk about sort of how your product is packaged, I really talk about the ideology of two things, right? You have to realize the only difference between when someone is buying in person and when someone buying is e-commerce, right, through the website, is a couple of factors. Number one, they can't touch your products, right? So in terms of how well your product is packaged, you need to showcase how your product is actually meant, like the materialization of your products, right? Because you got to realize your customers can't touch it, meaning they can't feel the quality for them to decide. So you need to handle that, right? Number two is the fit of the product, right? Especially if you're in the streetwear niche or actually every single niche, right, that I found that I worked in, right? The fit is super important. So you need to showcase that through your models and everything, right? How your product is packaged, right? And third is obviously the packaging itself, right? Right, of how the product is arriving, right? Because that's super important. The more unique it is, not really about the best bag you use to actually send the products out to the people, but it's more about how unique the experience is, and you have to think about the experience of it, right? And the fourth thing, which I think is honestly the most important part, is packaging your content through your product. Okay, and let me sort of give you this, right? If I get a Supreme tee, right? Let's just say when everybody knows like a Supreme tee, right? They can sell for $1,000, right? Obviously they're branding, but there can be two brands that can have that same product, but one brand, right, can be in a position where they can charge a specific product for $100 and still can't sell. Whereas brand number two, they can sell the same product, but they can charge $1,000 and they can fucking sell that like fucking pancakes. And the only difference is the creatives, how the product is perceived in the creatives, right? Because if your creatives look shit, then your product is going to be deemed shit. Simple as that. Even though your product might be the best thing ever, and even though your quality of your product is the best thing in the market, and you know that, your customers don't give a fuck about that. Because when they look at your creative, it doesn't showcase that at all, right? And remember, they can't touch or they can't feel your product or they can't wear your product, so they trust through the creatives and how your product is packaged, right? If you look at all our clients' brands, right? If you look at society, right? Look at how the product is fucking packaged. Look at how well for Flower, we did their whole creatives as well, the photo shoot. Look how well the environment, the product is being packaged. If you look at this, holy shit, this looks like a fucking product that I would buy. You get what I mean? Because how the product is packaged, the models, obviously there's a whole nother video to this, right? In terms of how to build the creatives, right? But look at the creatives that we made, even for this man, right? We fucking killed it, right? It's absolutely incredible. The tonality, edit, how the models position, the tools, the objects, right? You can see how well we package the products through our creatives, which will determine if the customer will think this is for them, and number two, it's worth the value to them. That is simply it. Even if you have a shit product, which I don't recommend, but even if it's a shit product, but you can make creatives good as this, right? Again, it's not all about quality, but if you can position your content or your product, as good as this, you can scam these people. That's how powerful it is, because they have to trust you, Well, so many brands I've seen that I've worked with clients, they have this amazing product, but the perceived value is incorrect because the way they position themselves is so shit, right? And the third thing, which is sort of tying down to sort of, I guess, what I was mentioning, is Be exclusive with who you have inside your brand ecosystem, okay? If you're having this mindset of abundance where you only want people that you can directly help and that fits directly with your ecosystem and your brand values, you're going to bring in a shit tons of customers, because if you have that mindset, you're going to do that same type of action of building the right creatives, building the right acquisition, etc., right? Be exclusive, right? Every great brand does not include everyone. Okay, and that's what I want you to understand. Louis Vuitton doesn't want people who are fucking poor to buy their products. Supreme, okay, that's a harsh example, right? But that's the truth, and that's the same way you need a position, right? If you have if I have a cycling brand and it's only for professionals, I don't want shitty fucking customers who just get into cycling buying a product, because I don't care. That's not what my product fits them, right? That is super important. So be in the mindset of exclusivity, right? Because once you have that exclusivity, I can guarantee you people want to be included inside your community. And that's a little psychology trick as well, right? If you're more exclusive with your brand, who you bring in, right, the more people want to join in, right? It's the same thing where it's the research papers. If there's a restaurant with people online, right, you can have fake people. People are more entitled to line up because they don't want to feel the aspect of missing out, right? It's fear of missing out, right? People's biggest insecurity of missing out, right? And that's the same thing we want to build within our brands. Number two is direct messaging that you can personally relate to. I recommend when you create a brand that is directly sort of coming from you on why you create the brand. Because if you don't have a strong why, and you just reflect on the specific numbers, right, then you're going to be in the shithole once the numbers go down, right? So have a strong why and why you do it, right? For example, gym, golf brands, dreamer brands, have a strong why, and you need to have a clear messaging. So you on why you're creating the brand, your people can also relate to it. Because I kid you not, if you position yourself to sell a community instead of your product, right, you're going to scale to the fucking moon. And that's the main thing that I want you to take about. Sell your community instead of your product. You need to position it that way. Now, I know I yapped a lot, but if you have the combination of, number one, targeting a very specific individual, right, and you can reverse engineer that to a specific angle, then your marketing acquisition is going to be much easier. Number two, this is probably the most important part, to be honest with you, controlling the perceived value and how you package your brand, right? Because again, two brands can sell the same product, but only one brand can sell a product 10 times more expensive and 10 times more sales, just because of the fact that they package the product better than your brand. Simple as that, okay? And number two is be exclusive with who you have inside your community. It's like, if I have a gated community of rich people, I don't want poor people to come into my community, because that deteriorates my branding and my sort of the community that I create. And that's the same way I want you to position and think about it, okay? And like I said, there's only two things that you need to do to build a multi-million-dollar company, or clothing brand specifically. Product, which is a value providing to the market, which is something where I talked more deeper into our video today, okay? Number two is acquisition, which is once we have our value and once we can package our content, once we have our ICP, and once we actually have a direct messaging, right, we need to get people in. And without one another, right, you can have the most amazing product and brand in the world, but without the actual acquisition, then it fucking doesn't matter, right? Again, you can have this fucking cool brand that we made for Flower, these creators, you know, Pluto Golf, a client, right? We can have cycling and like clients like St. P, all these cool brands, but the reason why they sell and make fucking money is the acquisition, right? So I made a video recently talking about our specific community funnels where we help scale brands from 0 to 100K a month. We're recently helping scale 22 clothing brands from 0 to 7K a month plus. That video goes more in towards the acquisition, how we tie that into towards the product and branding. I'm going to put that link, check it out if you want. If you don't want to check it out, that's fine as well, right? If you have any questions, shoot me a message on Instagram. And if you want help, okay, if you need help with your brand, you want a full audit of it, book a call down below to speak to me and my team, okay? We can find your best bottlenecks and apply the best solutions to it, okay? Nevertheless, hope you got some value, or if you don't, take notes to it. You just wasted 25 minutes of your fucking time.